spent 200 hours developing a video game. That is a little over a month working a 9-to-5 job. That is 9 straight days of my life programming, drawing, designing, making music, and playtesting. Would I do it again? Yep. And by the way, the game is out now on itch.io. It's free, but you can give a little donation. You don't have to, just a little $1 or $2, but yeah, you don't have to. Why did I make this? Well, as mentioned in my last video, I always wanted to make a video game ever since I was 10, but programming just never clicked. And so instead I focused on art and animation, but years later I picked up programming again. Now I know a thing or two about it, so I was like, yeah, let's make a game. So what did I make? I had to think about this for quite some time. I wanted to make something that was challenging yet fulfilling to me. I didn't want to just clone a tutorial off of YouTube. I really wanted to make something special to me. There was this one game I used to play a very long time ago called Baker's Defense. In that game, you play as a chef, and there's thieves that are after your recipe. You basically need to defend your store so that the thieves don't steal your recipe. And then there's items and upgrades you can purchase along the way. This seemed like a very simple gameplay that I could incorporate, and I wanted to make something similar and put my own twist into it. Now really, the only two things I could draw very well are squares and circles, so I made a game about squares and circles, and it's called Leave It to Hans. You play as this little sword guy, his name is Hans, and you live in a village of circles. But sometimes your village gets attacked by these square ninjas. I know, right? Crazy plot. Are you still following? Now, you being the best swordsman out of your people, you act as the front line of defense, and you basically have to stop these squares from getting into your castle. Otherwise, you're screwed. The gameplay is similar to Baker's Defense. You have an area that you need to protect. The enemies get inside this area, it takes damage. You also need to watch your health, because if you die, the game is over. When you kill enemies, they drop coins, which allows you to purchase more items and upgrades over time. Now this all seems pretty straightforward, so realistically I should finish this in a week or two, right? Yeah, it took me like 3 months to finish. I had a lot of plans for this game. I was gonna add more items, several boss fights. It was pretty ambitious, but I ended up with 10 levels in total, as well as 1 boss fight. Okay, so it's time to build the game, and I went with the Godot game engine to make it. I think it's called Godot. Is it Godot or Godot? I don't...
Welcome to the Godot Engine FPS tutorial.
Yeah, whatever. There's lots of game engines out there that do the job. You don't even need a game engine if you're built different, but it really doesn't matter. I went with Godot because it seemed like the fastest way to get something out for my case. And so where did the 200 hours actually go? Core mechanics. This was the very first time I ever made a video game, so I really had no idea what I was doing. I was absolutely clueless on things like implementing a combat system, enemy behavior, health system, a shop system, but luckily there's lots of resources out there for Godot, plus my programming experience really helped, so I was up to speed fast. Now the biggest challenge I had to face was how big the code got and how messy it got fast. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I did all of my characters' input logic in one script. Things like running, jumping, attacking with a bow, activating your ultimate. Yeah, don't do this. I thought, hey, this is gonna be a small game, I'll just put everything in one script. No, guys, even if you think your game is small, gotta organize your code. Split it into different scripts. Don't do everything in one script. I might as well put meatballs in my code because of how spaghetti it is. I knew I couldn't do this for more advanced features like the clone as well as the boss fight, so I had to learn what a state machine was. This was actually something I learned in school but never actually applied, like ever. So yes, I did end up writing cleaner code, which set me up for more complex features which I can make. Now I can't cover everything I worked on in one video, but here are the 2 things I was proud of while making the clone. Now for 1500 coins you can learn to clone yourself. This guy basically attacks enemies for you, and he's actually pretty overpowered, I'm not gonna lie. I think he's just a little bit faster than you. I can't entirely confirm, but he does wipe out enemies fast, and he makes your life so much easier. There's a cooldown for about 20 seconds before you can actually use him again, but after that you can absolutely go to town with him. This took about 2 days to complete, and again I had to learn what a state machine was for this. A state machine is basically a system where a character is always in one state, like standing still, chasing an enemy, or attacking. For the clone's logic, if there's no enemies, it just runs around. If it sees an enemy, it switches to chasing, and when it gets close enough, it switches to attacking. The ultimate move. This is honestly the coolest thing I made. It was inspired by an animation called One versus Many. Like, the character's name is literally One. I don't know, I just had to share it. There's a shot where One freezes time and slashes every single one of his enemies while they hang motionless in the air, and it's just so badass. Hyun, if you are watching this, man, you are the absolute GOAT, man. Like, you're actually the GOAT. Now, when this bar fills up, you press E to activate your ultimate, and this freezes time and Hans slashes through all the enemies in the screen. The way this works, without getting too technical, is that Hans has a collider box around him at all times. When you press E, Hans checks which enemies are inside this box, and all the enemies in the range get added to a queue to be attacked. Then, the game's time is paused, and one by one, Hans teleports to each enemy and performs a slash. There's 4 different animations, so it looks varied. He keeps going through the queue, attacking each enemy until everyone in range has been hit. Then we unpause the game, and when you put it all together, it looks like systems and features. The game has your standard menu, UI, save system. Oh wait, no, I was told we don't have a save system. Sorry. There's a progression system, so each level a new enemy gets introduced. In the first level, these little dudes show up and all they do is punch. The second level, these taller dudes show up and they throw shuriken at you. In the third level, you got these guys. They run really fast, and when you attack them, it actually triggers a quick time event where you gotta mash the attack button. They deal a lot of damage when you lose, by the way. I added a couple more enemies after these guys, but since there's 10 levels in total, I didn't want to add just more enemies, otherwise the game would get too cluttered. But to solve this, I actually added bombs. So enemies actually throw bombs at you, and fun fact, you can parry them, and I think that is pretty satisfying. That's why I added it. Polish. Now, excluding the sound effects, I made all the art for this game. This includes the animation and even the soundtrack. Now, I actually used Flash to make all the art because it's literally the only art tool I know how to use. I was heavily inspired by Castle Crashers while making this project, and I think that game's art was also made in Flash. It just has a very distinct style. The brush tool in Flash is so iconic you can immediately tell something was drawn in Flash. I wanted to give the game a little bit more life as well, so I added comics. Yes, the lore is that deep. I was very particular with the animations because I wanted the game to not just work, but also feel satisfying. Like, the attack animation was pretty bad for the longest time, and so I had to do a complete overhaul for that specific animation, and I eventually ended up with this. And I think this is much smoother. As for the soundtrack, I was this close to using AI for this, by the way. I suck at producing music, and I was honestly just thinking about AI generating the music for this game, but, you know, I thought to myself, this would honestly strip off how special this project is to me. And instead of using AI, I sat down, opened GarageBand, and got to work. And after 2 to 3 days of learning how GarageBand worked, I finished the entire soundtrack for the game, and here they are. I think they ended up being okay, but let me know what you guys think. Biggest mistakes and lessons. Now, even though this is a relatively small game, there was just so much to do. A feature that I thought was simple actually took days. It wasn't just programming. You had to take into account the art, the animations, the sound effects, and then spent hours agonizing over bugs that seemed impossible to fix. Honestly, I'm glossing over so many features in this video, but yeah, I did spend countless hours debugging. The biggest mistake I made was probably doing too much in a short period. period of time. I got so absorbed in just perfecting every small detail that I didn't give myself enough breaks. At one point I actually did burn out and I had to step away from the project for a little bit, but eventually I did come back to it, and looking back, I really wish I just managed my time better. I wish I planned my days, paced myself so that I could avoid burnout. This was a very tough lesson. So yeah, for anyone who's making a game, it is very tempting to dive in and do everything at once, but pace yourself. It will save a lot of headaches and frustration, and it also keeps the process fun. And yeah, that's pretty much my game. It's not perfect by any means, but I'm honestly really proud of how it turned out, and I'm excited to make more games in the future. It's something that you can jump into, have some fun for an afternoon, and then move on. I'm totally okay with that. Again, if you want to check it out, it's free on itch.io. I've dropped a link in the description. Thanks for watching. So that I could avoid